Hi folks, welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to remove the pedal arm. The pedal arm is this silver section here that goes from the crank axle through to the pedal itself on an exercise bike. And this procedure is quite common. You'll find it on all kinds of exercise bikes and spin bikes, and there's one or two tricks with it which I'll share with you just to help you avoid making some of the errors that I used to make when I first started out doing this. So the first thing we need to do is get our Allen key to remove the center screw there. Can you see that's an Allen key fitting for that one there? Now sometimes they're not always Allen keys. Sometimes you might see a bolt head, in which case you'll need a socket, because you'll need to get into the head of the bolt, which will be inset inside the crank arm itself. But on this particular variety, it's an Allen key, and it's a fairly standard fitting. And the good news is all the threads follow all the conventions, so it's lefty-loosey. So I'm just going to get this in a comfortable position, give it a sharp tap, just to release that. Now I can withdraw the fixing bolt. Fixing bolts are normally quite tight. They're anywhere from sort of 35 to 60 Newton meters in tension, which is quite a lot. And you can probably see on this one, you can make out the blue on the threads there. That's called thread lock. Because these are load-bearing parts, it's quite common for the manufacturers to put this, which is it's effectively a glue for threads, and it helps keep that in place, which makes getting it out sometimes a bit of a challenge, especially if it's corroded or there's dirt. You might want to clean that out first. So challenge number one, remove that, and now the pedal doesn't come off, so it doesn't really get you any further on. To get the pedal off, you actually need a special tool. This is a crank arm removal tool, and they come in various shapes and sizes, but they all look generally like this. They're not particularly expensive. Whoops. You can get them from bike shops, you can buy them online, and they all work in the same way. So yours might look slightly different to this, but the principle of what I'm going to show you is the same. The first thing to check is the end. The way these work is that they push off on the end here. So we're going to screw this into the hole there. Then we're going to screw the shaft here, and it's going to push out the rod at the end, and that's going to push off on the axle and draw the crank arm off. Now the thing you've got to check, which is really important, is the diameter of that there. You need to just make sure that it's going to fit comfortably on the axle without damaging the thread on the axle. If you use the wrong end, because these will often come with more than one tip that you can use. So on mine, for example, let's just unscrew this so you can see. If I wanted to, I can remove the tip like that, which gives me a slightly bigger diameter there that I could use. And it's just because there's variations in the axles that you're going to push off against. And what you don't want to be doing is damaging the thread inside there, because if you do, when it comes to reassembly, you're not going to be able to get your screw back in, which is going to be a real problem. So just double check that. If you're not sure about it, I'll give you a little tip. If you're not sure, you can always use this as a sort of default go-to solution. Get a random box of fixings, just a random box of screws. Find a screw that's got a nice big head on it, that's smaller, but the diameter of it is smaller than your original screw, that will just push in there and sit comfortably in the hole, as you can see there in the photograph. And if you do that, you'll actually be pushing off against the head of the screw rather than the axle itself, which will just help protect the thread on the axle. So I'm going to leave that in there, and I'll just show you what I mean by pushing off on that screw. It's a kind of belt and braces solution to make sure that you're not going to encounter problems further down the line. So the next tip, put a little bit of lube if necessary. You can see the threads here on mine are quite clean, so I don't need to, but yours might be corroded, in which case wipe it out. Put a little bit of lube in there, little 3-in-1 oil or something like that, just to help screw on the outer part. And another tip, when you're screwing this outer part on, make sure that the inner part is completely, well, you can take it out completely if you want to. Now mine doesn't come out, but it unscrews completely. And by doing that, you make sure that it's not going to interfere with that while you screw this outer bit on. And it's really important that the outer bit gets screwed on all the way, because these are quite tight, and if you don't have all the threads engaged, you can easily strip the thread rather than withdraw the tool. So I'm just going to make sure that's nice and tight in there, which it is. Then another little tip, rather than have it very, very tight, just back it off, quarter of a turn, It just makes life easier for getting the tool out of the arm when it's off. So far so good. Let's screw in our centre part. That's now going to push off against the screw, the head of the screw that we put in there. Now conveniently, all these fittings are the same as the pedal fittings, which is 15mm, so you should have a tool. If it hasn't come with a tool, you'll find a regular spanner, 15mm spanner, will do the job just fine. And then just hold the pedal still and turn the centre part. And you'll find that it starts to draw the pedal arm off the axle this way. And it should feel quite tight to start with, but then it should get progressively looser and looser and looser until the pedal arm comes off like that. Then of course when you do that, you'll be able to get your screw out and you've protected the thread there, so that when you come to reassemble it, your original screw will be just fine. And that's it. And it works the same for both sides. The logic for how you tighten and loosen follows the standard convention for a right-hand thread, so that's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so you don't have any of the complications that you do with pedals to worry about. And then of course, just remember that by backing that off a quarter turn, it means that in most cases you can, just with your fingers, unscrew your tool from the arm, and then you're ready to venture inside. Good luck.